on Silverio, and then this was our week 7 discussion board. Last one for this class, so kind of excited. But yeah, I just wanted to start off with saying, 5 concepts of American bureaucracy that a lot of Americans might not know. So to begin with, I don't know a lot about bureaucracies, but I am glad that this week I kind of got to learn a lot about it, and I don't know how common they were up until this week and learning about it. So by definition, it would be a system of government in which most important decisions are made by state officials rather than elected representatives. So this kind of allows a lot of things, like how there's a lot of departments in our government. It kind of allows for a little more specialization certain issues, and that's why all large scale institutions use a form of bureaucracy, just because they're very efficient. It kind of allows things to be done by professionals in that field, and tasks at hand can be kind of handled in a better way. So one example of this would be another reason that we have bureaucracies is because they allow specialization. Like me and you, we know our laws. Like our freedom of speech, this and that, and then our rights, and as well as laws like can't run a red light, things like that we know. But there's a lot of specific laws that on paper as they're written, very very hard to interpret. So one reason we have bureaucracy is for it allows professionals, such as professionals of certain laws, to specialize in that, and make sure those laws are carried out. So bureaucracies are also extremely beneficial to the public. Like, I did not know how frequent and how common they were. Examples of those that help protect the interests of the public as well as our own benefits would be the FDA and the DMV. Those are both bureaucracies. And it allows, again, specialization, such as the DMV. It allows us, okay, any car troubles and Department of Motor Vehicles, stuff like that. You go to the DMV and you get that situated. As well as the FDA, it ensures that, food and drugs are administered in a way that is safe to the public. They're checked, they're inspected, have to keep up regulations, and all this again is an interest of the public. So another reason that we have bureaucracies, a lot of people don't know, or at least I didn't know this, because I didn't really know the retrospect or like the big scope that bureaucracies had. A big reason we have them as well is for our own security, like the Homeland of Security and the CIA, or the Department of Homeland Security and the CIA. They're both forms of bureaucracies, and a big one, the Homeland or Department of Homeland Security, big bureaucracy, and it's very important, especially like post 9/11, kind of became stricter, and you know, it's just like protects us um, from internal like danger as well as external danger. That's why we have the CIA. To keep the CIA keeps tabs with a lot of things. Part of that is to ensure our own safety. And another reason, more local level, why we have bureaucracies is, welfare and snaps, like, food stamps. Those are also bureaucracies, and that was something that I didn't know, because that's kind of a more common thing they see day to day. When you go to Stater Brothers, and then some things are on deal, and they're like, oh yeah, if you have snaps, then you could get that discount. And I just thought that was kind of crazy that even stuff like that you see like day to day, from it ranges from the CIA and airports and stuff like that, security, all the way down to just you going to the grocery store, and I thought that was pretty cool. So another 5 things about American judicial system that you might not know. So I thought some of these were kind of crazy. The Supreme Court has power to deem laws unconstitutional through judicial review, and I knew some of this, but I didn't know how important, influential, and how big things like this can get. So a lot of court cases that you see, in your, or at least you hear about, maybe not see as common, but like historical court cases, like an example would be like Tinker versus Des Moines, um, with protests of the Vietnam War, like that was a subject of judicial review. So that happens when as we know, day to day life is can get pretty complicated, and some things can be deemed unconstitutional. Like in that specific court case, middle school students were displaying their protest for the Vietnam War by wearing black armbands, and the school prohibited it. but the Supreme Court ruled that unconstitutional. So they kind of have a place, you know, deciding over certain things. And this court case, they're used as examples later on, which is crazy. Another thing that um, is important is that when in federal courts and the Supreme Court hearings, once a specific like law or something is like decision is made in the Supreme Court, it's very hard, or at least they said in the video that they try not to overturn it or go against it for a reason. And I just think that's kind of crazy how influential court cases can be. Like for that specific example, Tinker versus Des Moines ensured a lot more of freedom of speech and expression, which is in the Bill of Rights, but it kind of like made it a little more broad and gave more leeway for what people can do. So I just thought that was crazy that the American judicial system can do that, because like the First Amendment, freedom of speech and like press and express yourself, that was already a thing, it was already established. But like court cases just kind of build upon that in a way, but they can also take away. So yeah, and then another reason or another example of the American judicial system, that like a power that they have that I wasn't really aware about, um, was that they have the power to review presidential actions. Like I knew, sometimes it's easy to think about the president as like this big old powerful guy, which he is, but the judicial system, thanks to checks and balances, has they can control him as well. Like in Nixon, with the Watergate scandal, they kind of um overturned his like what was it called? Well, basically, he was seen as like he had like presidential I forgot what it's called, but basically they forced him to overturn his tapes because it was a national issue of national security, because they wanted to see what was going on with Watergate, and that was a big old scandal. And the judicial courts had power over him, even though he was the president. So that's very very cool. That checks and balances and the judicial system, kind of sets everything into place. But the some people believe another thing, people might not know, is that judicial review can be unconstitutional. Kind of going back to what I said earlier, that some court decisions are, hard to overturn, but that does happen. Like Roe v. Wade would be like a famous one that like all those years ago, um, that ruling was made, pertaining abortion, but like up till recently, things are getting overturned, but that was like over 100 years ago. So pretty crazy. But in the same light, it kind of people see it as judges having too much powers, as like a lot of those rulings are like seen as binding. Like people want to like keep those in place because the Supreme Court did rule that way. And another reason that the judicial court system has such like influence, is I just kind of want to tie this in just because I knew it was such a famous example. A lot of people would actually know that I could tie in. Is the introduction of Miranda rights. So that's another ruling or a case ruling that basically a guy was put into custody and he wasn't read his rights, and that kind of led him to confess something that led to his conviction. But the judicial court ruled that, because he wasn't read his rights, they didn't change the law, but they said, okay, in the future we're letting the police know that, if they don't read their rights out, then any confessions made are going to be overturned and like dismissed. So this although it didn't like change the, like, I don't know, it changed, but it didn't change because it kind of like made all police like all throughout the United States know like, okay, I have to say these Miranda rights, or else like any confession I get is going to be overturned. So it did have a lot of power, because like even till today, you watch any cop show or anything, you see the Miranda rights. So yeah, and the supremacy clause as well. Just wanted to tie that back in because I put the supremacy clause is cool. So yeah, it ensures rights for people too. And then just because I don't want this to go long, because my last video was kind of long. Things I didn't know 7 weeks ago, and just real rapid. I did not know how easy in theory it is to run for mayor of your town. Like for me, I need two forms, like a 501 and a 401. And just basically before a certain period, I submit those, and technically I'm in running for mayor. It's gonna be require money in other sport, but like technically, these simple things you can like have to start your running for mayor. And also, I learned that my city and a lot of cities as well are divided up into wards or districts, and it kind of makes it easier for like certain representatives to be broken up and then represent certain broken up wards. So it just makes it a lot easier. And a big thing I learned about that I found was major was bicameral Congress. The system set in place, it has committee chairs, which is good because they're elected, but they have a lot of power. They have the power to like some uh proposed laws to be set in place. They can either like say, oh, we don't take a lot of interest in this one, and the law could die uh, before it's even passed up. So I just thought that was crazy that they have the power to do that. And they also have the power to, kind of persuade their political party to come in their way, just like whipping into shape. And I'll never forget that because I thought that was crazy. And also, I learned that once on the Supreme Court, once they make a ruling, it's very difficult for it to be overturned. Kind of like what I said earlier. I just thought it was crazy that because when cases reach the Supreme Court, they kind of want them to stay in place for a reason, and they're historic. In the video, saying that a lot of Supreme Court judges know that like their decisions are going to be studied, and like they're basically part of history. So, but once that is happened, it's hard for them to be overturned, but it does happen if necessary. Just like Roe v. Wade. And also that bureaucracies are everywhere, including in our food, just with the FDA. I didn't know what a bureaucracy was. Forgive me if that's kind of crazy, but like learning about it, I was like, oh, these things are everywhere. Like I just didn't know what to assimilate with it. But they're in their food and their security and getting food stamps, all this good stuff. So it's just, whoa, pretty cool. And then yeah, the end. So I want to end it up with American bureaucracies are essential for our own governance because without them, a lot of stuff that gets done, it would just not be able to get done. There's a lot of needs of the people, and this is a big nation. So thanks to bureaucracies, you know, certain departments are made for certain issues to be dealt with. So it's just very good thing, very efficient, and very essential. And also learn that the Supreme Court has a lot of influence when it comes to laws and their interpretation because laws can be, rulings can be made in favor or against some laws, and the interpretation of those laws kind of gets molded by those. As I was saying with Tinker versus Des Moines, how they use that court case to freedom of expression, even if it's kind of going against what your government's doing at the time, which would be the Vietnam War in that case. So yeah, you can still protest that, and this was made clear in Tinker versus Des Moines. Kind of like leads to the future as well. Like, oh, okay, I know they could do that, so I can do this as well. And lastly, American government is an increasingly changing subject. Uh, part of government is politics, and politics are happening all the time. So I learned that it's important to, kind of keep up with certain stuff. Maybe you don't have to be deep within American government, but it is something important that you should take interest in, and just keep tabs with certain things. And yeah, because it's changing all the time. So yeah, that was my